Atepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haroon Nefer. This is Kasak Mahat Kabaru with another video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about why you should communicate with the deceased. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have free ebooks for you. You can click on the links below and download those ebooks and start reading more on my spiritual teachings and the esoteric. Lastly, if you're not a supporter of ours on Patreon, consider doing so. You can get free and exclusive access to all the content on there as a Patreon supporter. You can do so for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month. And all your spiritual readings are included in there if you're an SR level supporter. Lastly, please share this video with family and friends so we can free this planet and shift it from the current vibrational frequency it's at to a new, freer vibrational frequency. Haroon Nefer, how are you? So a couple of things I want to talk to you about. First thing is I'm watching the news very closely regarding the coronavirus and how it's spreading and what's happening. So I'm really disappointed at how the media is addressing this, because the media, they are creating fear and panic. That's what they do best always. They are focusing on the deaths, and they're really accentuating the negative aspects. For example, they're trying to create this sense of overwhelming, daunting fear, and that we are not equipped to handle this. Like the emergency rooms in the hospitals are overrun with patients, and they don't have enough equipment. And even Trump is coming out and he's saying that he's hearing these requests for face masks, but where are all the face masks that we have? Where are they going? So that's a clear indication that something's not right. And I want you to understand that the media always does this. This is nothing new. Now, I'm not trying to belittle the coronavirus. I'm not saying that it's not deadly. I'm not saying that it's not real. But what I'm telling you is that the mainstream news media is trying to create fear. It's trying to paint a picture as if the hospitals are overrun and they can't keep up with the amount of patients coming in. You must understand that people who are getting this virus, they're showing just very mild symptoms. And most people who get the virus won't die from it. Okay, but the way the media is portraying it is like you have people are dying, and we have a projection now that they're saying that they project around 200,000 people will die from this virus. And this is the number that they're painting on the airwaves. This is all you see. 200,000 deaths are going to happen, and they're trying to make you afraid, and they're trying to show you how there's roadblocks and checks to make sure you're not carrying it. And this is not true. In fact, one news reporter went to the hospitals in the South Bronx in New York and showed that the hospitals were operating almost just as normal, as if nothing was happening. But the media is painting it as like the hospitals are overrun with patients coming in there. And it's just a lie. And as I said before, it's nothing unique to the coronavirus. This is what they do. They just try to create fear in the public. So I want you to take what the media says with a grain of salt. It is not as bad as what they're painting it to be, All right, so let's go on to another important subject, which is why you should communicate with the deceased. One of the things that we're fortunate to have is a culture and a legacy that our ancestors left behind. And what I see now is a lot of people who are raising their children, or even themselves, how they operate among themselves, they're not paying tribute to that. They don't understand the rich culture. But I think to a certain degree, some of us are aware of something's not right with this world that we're living in. And that is because the world that we're living in is a construct. It's a lie. It's been put together and formulated by some very, very dark, sinister individuals. And their plan was to keep us from a knowledge of self and keep us from a knowledge of what the reality really is. You see, apart from the reality that you see before you, there is another reality that's hidden from you. This is why the movie The Matrix tried to indicate that there were two different realities, the one that you see before you and the real one that you can experience. And that real reality is hidden. And what has been placed before you is a facade, a lie. You see, when you start to examine the ideology of the Western man, this entire system, you begin to see that it's constructed purposely to keep you away from certain things. Case in point, you'll notice that movies try to make you afraid of the deceased, afraid of spirits, afraid of ghosts. Well, they don't want you to learn the secrets of communicating with the deceased. They don't want you to know that there is an afterlife, that you do transcend and the energy does change and you go on to another life. They don't want you to know these things. They don't want you to know that you can work with the oracles to communicate with the spirits, communicate with the deities, communicate with God's intelligence known as Tahuti. They don't want you to know these things. So they create a culture where all of this stuff seems esoteric, seems new age, seems nonsense. And they poo-poo it. They make it seem like you're a nut for getting involved in this. But it's all how they constructed things to keep you away from that real power and that real knowledge. You see, just as in modern science, stupid as they are, they don't believe in an afterlife. You see, they have not reconciled that all they can look at is the physical. They cannot take into consideration the metaphysical. Oh, but now it comes along quantum mechanics, and now they're starting to look at things at the subatomic level, and they're starting to realize that maybe the African priests had it right when they talked about metaphysical things, different entities, different dimensions. And now modern science is looking at it, and then they want to play the little name game where they give it different nomenclatures. And because they name it differently, then it's scientifically acceptable for them to believe that there are extra dimensions. When our ancestors, the shaman and Sha women, and the priests and priestesses knew this thousands of years ago. When the Dogon knew there was stars in the sky before there was a telescope to be able to see these things. But see, we have been brought up in a system that is Maya. It's an illusion. It's a facade. They have to keep you in the matrix. And in order to do that, they got to get you to be afraid of the dead, afraid of the deceased. This is why you have zombie movies. This is why you have haunted house movies. This is all propaganda. But those of us who follow the traditional path of our ancestors know full well that communicating with the deceased is common. This is what you should be doing. There's nothing to fear from doing this. In fact, your ancestral lineage, those ancestors who come before you have laid a foundation of knowledge and wisdom that they want to pass on to you if you only would open up the communication to them. They're waiting to commune with you. But we are going under social pressure, you see. We go to the universities, we go to the social institutions, and we're afraid to try something different. We're afraid of our own culture. So we run from it so that we can be socially accepted into their in-the-box thinking. Because all they do is take out the left brain, which is concrete thinking, limited thinking. They don't use their entire brain. They don't use whole brain thinking. Only exceptional few of them did, like Nikola Tesla and Einstein. But you were meant to operate using both sides of your brain. And when you use both sides of your brain, you're known as an Osir, the uniter of the way, the uniter of Upper and Lower Egypt, or Kemet. You then bridge the gap between the physical and the metaphysical. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, modern scientists could not fathom that there was a God because they could not see or envision a metaphysical entity that had no shape, that had no essence. That was too difficult of a concept for them. Of course, when you operate on the left brain, you have to have something concrete. The left brain has a very difficult time with metaphysical principles. The abstract confuses the left brain because that's not what it's meant to do. And thus, they've constructed a world and a society that puts the right brain to sleep, where we don't use the right brain. And therefore, we don't produce geniuses in our society. We produce people who are asleep and deaf, dumb, and blind. And then we fall susceptible to the COVID-19, and we believe mass media, and we don't use our third eye, our uchet, to see what they're really doing, which is creating fear and panic for no reason. You see, this is all a beta test. That's all this is a beta test. They want to see how we comply, how we stay isolated in our homes, if we will go according to their plan. So when the real plan is instituted, they have no fear that we will comply. But if you are watching this broadcast and you're like me, we're tired of the lies. We're tired of the fear mongering. We're tired of the propaganda. We're sick of it. And I don't give a damn if people don't want to associate with me because I follow in the tradition of my ancestors. To hell with you. To hell with you. If you think I'm crazy, I am not. You are crazy operating on using 50% of your brain. You are the crazy one. You are the sick one. Because I believe in reincarnation, because I believe in the metaphysical, because I know there are different dimensions and entities that exist in those dimensions that I can communicate with and ask and petition help from. You're still trying to figure if there's life in outer space. Of course there is life in outer space. Our ancestors knew that thousands of years ago. As I said before, they could see stars without using telescopes. They were very, very smart. Aside from the propaganda that they put out. Oh, but that's another form of the propaganda they had to put out there to vilify African culture and traditions, to make it seem pagan, to make it seem like it was all about voodoo, the devil, and that Christianity was the most moral and upright religion, which was a lie. Christianity caused the slave trade. It caused the almost extermination of the Native Americans in this country. So you're going to tell me how that religion is morally upright, and you want me to tithe and give money to these pimp pastors? Are you insane? Are you crazy? These pimp pastors following in tradition of murderers. That's right, I said it. These pimp pastors are following in the tradition of murderers because they murdered the Native Americans on this land, and they stole the land under the guise of Christianity. How's that for you? Meanwhile, there's never been a civilization on this planet that have been people of color who waged war on a global scale. Never have been that. We have never done that. We have never instituted a social system known as racism based on the color of one's skin. People of color have never done that. We've never had slaves based on the color of one's skin. Never, ever, because we don't think in terms of concrete thinking. We don't think only in terms of left brain thinking. We think through the right brain, which is synthesis thinking. Means we look to see and how to bring things together. We understand that everything is one, and that for the whole to function, everything must stay with its assigned role and operate. But this Western left brain nincompoop doesn't understand the universe and doesn't even understand himself. So he thinks he has to subjugate everything. Everything's about power, about climbing the corporate ladder, about acquisition of material goods, about striking fear. This is why their God, you have to fear their God. You see how they create fear? African people never feared their God. In fact, our God was within. We never feared our ancestors. We never feared when an apparition appeared to us. We never walked into a house and we heard it say, "Get out." We don't hear that kind of nonsense. But they have to keep producing those movies. They have to keep putting out that propaganda. Did you know that the Christian religion, until recently, and some still are, said that meditation was a gateway to the devil? They used to try to steer people away from meditating until science came along and said meditation can help with high blood pressure. It can help relax you, calm you, and increase your intelligence level. Because anytime you operate out of fear, you lose intelligence. You become less intelligent because fear overrides the logical faculty. So we need to start opening that communication with our ancestors because they understand our plight. They understand what we're dealing with, but they cannot help us if we don't take a step in that direction. We got some of our people who are just lost and they think they can be better than the average person by joining the Nation of Islam or being a Muslim, and they think that makes them better. No, it makes you more lost and more stupid. Because even Malcolm toward the end realized he was going in the wrong direction. That was after his pilgrimage to Mecca. So until you come back and start to really understand, now I'm not advocating that you accept a traditional African way of life. No, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm not advocating that you accept a traditional African religion. No, I'm not saying it. But what I'm trying to tell you, to get the message across to you, is that everything in this reality has been constructed out of the left brain. It's been constructed to keep you confined, to keep you in a matrix. And you're never going to see reality for what it is. You're never going to know what's really there until you come out of that matrix, or until you learn to manipulate the matrix and you become a Neo, the one. And this can happen in your lifetime. But the first thing you need to do is you need to understand that everything that has been created for you in this reality, the universities, the corporate world, the common social, cultural protocols are all constructed to keep you away from the truth. The friends that you socialize with, they're all part of the matrix. They're all going to try and keep you from finding out the truth, that you exist in a fabricated reality. So they're going to enact social pressure on you to keep you where you're at. When you start talking about using the oracles, when you start talking about reincarnation, when you start talking about communicating with the deceased and communicating with spirits and trying to meditate and go to and astral travel to different dimensions, they're going to look down upon you, call you names behind your back. You'll never hear them say it in front of you. Unfriend you on Facebook and other social media platforms, because they want to keep you in the box. But what has staying in the box done for them? Look at the world that they want to stay in. Look at what has happened. If this is the world that you want, then you can have it. I want no part of it. A world where you turn on the news media and all they talk about is death, destruction, fear. When you go to the movies, they make movies about the dead, spirits, zombies, be afraid. And that's all you do. You work 9 to 5, even more than that. Because the European mindset is so beset with power and conquest that they work you to death to get some title, a title that means nothing. And they want to keep you stressed out, fearful, so you don't stop and have a moment to think. Because if you have a moment to think, you start to question things. What's wrong with talking to a spirit? What's wrong with using the oracles? What's wrong with believing in different dimensions and entities that exist, or different worlds that exist within those dimensions? What's wrong with meditating? What's wrong with ayahuasca and DMT? And then when you start to think, you start to question, and you start to realize that everything is a lie. It's all a lie. But that's nothing. That is nothing. Because when you start going down that path of exploring more, then they send their minions out there, little minions, to get rid of you or to bring you back into the fold. And then that's when your life really catches hell. But if you're strong enough and you're focused and dedicated, then you will make contact with those who will help show you the way. who will pull you out of the box, pull you out of that matrix, and show you something you've never seen before, something fantastic, something amazing, a new reality where you are God, where you are the power, where you can call upon forces to change the reality that's before you. Isn't that amazing? Where you can speak to your deceased ancestors and say, save me, help me, help me. This world is crazy. And they will hear your cry and come to your aid. Yes, they will come to your aid. They have no choice because that is what they're there for. They're in the inner planes waiting for you to call them. Those warriors that fought so that they wouldn't be slaves and died, they're still warriors on the inner planes, and they're still ready to do battle. So call out to them. Create a shrine in your bedroom, in your living room, a shrine to your ancestors. Put candles there, and then ask them to help you, to guide you. They may not hear you the first time because that communication has been so long in coming. But if you keep crying out to them, eventually they will hear you, and then they will come to your aid. And then when you form that bond and that communication with them, never let it go. Never let it go. Because they have so much knowledge and wealth to share with you that will help enhance your life. 42nd hexagram of the I Ching, increase. You will get increase. 55th hexagram in the I Ching, abundance. You'll have abundance. Remember that. So call out to your ancestors. Call out to those who have passed on. Tell them what you're going through. Tell them about COVID-19. Tell them about this sick reality we live in. And tell them to help us. You see, it makes perfect sense why Black people, African Americans, are so heavily oppressed. Why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be? Because they at one time had a civilization that was in alignment with Ma'at, with truth. That their civilization was based on abundance and love and prosperity and wealth, sharing. And it was torn down and destroyed by those who are in power now. And those that are in power now don't want to see it come to fruition again. So they have to oppress you. They have to put you down. Because they want to stay in power for as long as possible, to spread death and destruction and disease. But they know the truth. And that is, the truth is spreading. People are becoming awake. People are now realizing that these media broadcasts, where they're pumping out fear and they're lying about how deadly COVID-19 is, people are starting to question this. They're saying, wait a minute. You first told us it couldn't affect younger people. Now you're telling me younger people are dying? Wait a minute. Not that many people can be dying because most people who get it only show mild symptoms. So why are you constantly broadcasting the death toll? But you see, that's not one isolated thing. That's what their society is about. Lies and manipulation. Don't you get it? The COVID-19 just exposes a fraction of what they do. A small, tiny part of what they do. Look in the education system, all based on left brain thinking, all based on not producing geniuses, just the regurgitation of information. Memorize that, and I'm going to give you a test where you just check off A, B, C, D, and then after that, we'll give you a diploma. That's not learning. That's not what our ancestors had in mind for us. You're living a lie. And COVID-19 is going to, in part, expose them that they're liars and that they have been oppressing people in this country for a reason, because those people held the truth and still have the truth. And if given a chance, they will resurrect a society that is wondrous, a civilization that is wondrous. And those in control, those evil doers who hide in the shadows because they're too afraid to show their faces, don't want that to happen. They don't want you to be free. They don't want you to know who you truly are. Because it's over for them. The fat lady's going to sing. They know it. The minute that you realize that you're a God man and God woman, and that you will embrace whole brain thinking, and that you know this is all Maya and an illusion, and that you know everything that they fed to you, and they pretend that it is of quality and it is the highest caliber, is doo-doo. Their Christian religion is a plagiarized religion of the religion of Asar and the Set. Most of the priests or ministers in high positions know that. They know it. They know it's a plagiarized religion. They know it's based on Osir and Aset and Haru. But they're not going to tell you that because they get to manipulate you, and it keeps the money rolling in so they can build their mega churches and the cathedrals. The Vatican has a library in the catacombs in the bottom of the Vatican. And that library is a wealth of knowledge which exposes the truth that their religion was written by man, not by God, wasn't even inspired by God. But they have to keep up the lie to the world. Oh, worship Mary, worship Jesus, worship them. They're going to come and save you. You are the Savior. You are God. You will save yourself. You understand? You will save yourself. Don't wait for anybody to do it. Come into the knowledge of who you truly are and the powers that you really have. Because when those ancestors start to communicate with you, the first thing they're going to say is, excuse me, God man, God woman, don't you know who you are? And that's going to shock you. Because if you look at ancient Kemet and ancient Egypt, every pharaoh built statues, gigantic statues of themselves, always in pairs, them and their queens. Sorry, that's not kind of proper English, but you get the point. And they did this because they aspired to be the likeness of gods. That's what they spent their whole life. Not a life bent on conquesting foreign territories. No, a life where everything they did was to awaken the God nature and the God qualities within themselves. When you go reading their scriptures, it's always him to Osar, him to Aset, him to Ma'at. They're praising the gods, that God quality within themselves. Or Alexander the Great and all those others just praise their own selves and their conquests and how many people they killed, how many people they threw to the lions. A barbaric society. And that barbaric society still goes on today because you have to be a barbarian to enslave your fellow man, your fellow woman. You are a barbarian to oppress a people because of their skin color. No, you're worse than a barbarian. You are sick in the head because you only use 50% of your brain. So therefore, you see the world skewed. You don't see the world for what it is. See, our role has to be to free them. there are many of them who, if given an opportunity, would rebel as well, would come out the matrix as well. But they've been so deeply buried and they've been given so many privileges, it's more difficult for them to come out of that. So it'll take a little more effort on our part, but they will come out of it and they will accept the truth that one day the pyramids will rise again. And a Sarah will be resurrected by any means necessary. And I don't believe it'll come through any type of military coup d'etat or violent uprising. It's going to come about through a slow, progressive, vibrational shift. People will start to reject the system. They will start to see the truth because there's already cracks in it. People are starting to see this whole COVID-19 for what it really is. Now, all they have to do is to use that third eye, the insight that they've gathered from COVID-19, and look at the rest of society and say, you know what? COVID-19 was just the start. There's other things wrong with this society, and we need to question this. And they will start to question it. And the great awakening will happen. It'll take some time, but it will happen. I want to thank you for tuning in and listening to this message. Set the shrine up. Open that communication with your ancestors and ask them for help. Tell them what's going on in the world. And they already know, but they like to hear from you. And give it time. Eventually, they'll hear your cry and they'll come and answer it. Just be ready for it when it happens. This is Kasak Ma'at Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next broadcast, Amun Ra.